Welcome back, my brave and beautiful humans, to another episode of Soul Hygiene. This is the second take with Miss Wendy Dillard. Um, we just had a we started the podcast and then my brain went foggy and I couldn't think and I'm like, stopped it, we started over. So Miss Wendy and I are going to have like a mini coaching session. I have never had one before. I think that's probably why I'm a little I don't know, brain fogged right now 'cause I'm like, "What do I say? What do I not say?" But we're just gonna roll with it and see what happens. But, Miss Wendy Dillard, she's been on the podcast before. She is a law of attraction coach, a spiritualist, and, her mission statement is
Oh, to help improve the quality of my clients' lives.
there it is. It's simple yet profound. So and that's why I love her so much. She's just an awesome human being. So, we, um we're gonna talk about I think I was going in the realm of talking about truth within boundaries. Um, I have 2 full-time jobs, basically. Actually, 3 almost, but, my daytime job, and then I have my company podcast, and then I take care of my parents, who are elderly. So, um, it's pretty hard and sometimes pretty difficult to stay within the realm of taking care of myself and my boundaries without jeopardizing, my my feelings and how I'm feeling and my opinions about the situations, if that makes any sense. So,
It does. And the first
yeah.
thing I want to say, as far as encouragement goes, is the very fact that you have awareness, that you have some feelings, and I'm assuming they're negative feelings by the way you were expressing them. I just felt like there's some things that cause you to feel like um, maybe these different things that you're doing are in conflict with one another, or there are moments that something might feel overwhelming, and there's some negative feelings. Would that be accurate?
That yes, for sure.
Okay. So in the moment you have the awareness that you have a specific feeling, first of all, it's totally okay to have a feeling because all feelings are just data. They're information for you to know where you're at a specific point in time. So if you were to like have a feeling, let's say, well, you tell me, like what would you say was the last time you had some kind of negative feeling that was in contradiction because of so many things that you're doing?
Probably a couple days ago,
Okay,
honestly.
and how would you label the feeling?
Overwhelmed.
Okay.
I think that is like the main thing that I feel, for the most part, just because I've took on this additional responsibility. Um,
Okay. But do you feel internally congruent doing all the different things you're doing? It just you don't feel like you have the time to do it, but you feel like they're all things you want to be participating in.
correct.
Okay. So overwhelm is a feeling that comes when you're not being present. It's you're thinking about what else has to be done, you're thinking about the future, and
Mm,
it causes you to feel like I don't have the time to really do each thing with the fullness of who I am.
that makes
That's
sense.
because when you're not present, you can't be
Mhm,
in the fullness of who you are.
right.
So that would be when you stop, celebrate the fact that you noticed you had a feeling. And if you notice that it's overwhelmed, that's when you want to take 3 deep breaths and calm yourself, ground yourself, and get back into the present moment.
Mhm,
And then, like, if let's say you're at your day job, say, well, here I am at my day job. I know I have many things that I'm going to do when I clock out, but right now, I'm going to stay present to what I'm here to do.
right.
And then just do it with the best of your ability. And 2 minutes later, you might feel overwhelmed again, and you stop, Celebrate that you recognized your feeling, take some deep breaths, and move on. And you might do this a million times in a day until it becomes autopilot.
Yeah. And that's such a simple thing to do. I don't feel as overwhelmed as I used to because it's funny that you say being in the present. And not funny, it's actually ironic in a way because I have a best friend who, um, sent me a reel the other day, and it was talking about being in the present. Like, you need to be in the present in order not to feel the negative effects of the world and the universe on you. So, for you to say that kind of just, "Okay,
All right, I surrender. I give in.
I
That's
see
what
it
it's
now." Yeah.
about.
I mean, when 2 people are telling you, you know? But no, it's such a simple practice, and I think that not a lot of people understand that, and it is something that I am definitely working on, um, because I've been going through this intentional journey of healing for almost 5 years now, and so I come across these areas where I'm like, "Ooh, what do I do? Oh, how should I feel?" Or, I don't know. Because I've never really sat down with a therapist or a coach or anything, so I kinda just try to figure it out on my own, but there comes a point where our sometimes we need that outside source, that that unbiased opinion or coach to say, "Okay, step back a little bit. Let's
Well,
talk it through."
and there's nothing you're supposed to feel at any given point. Um, 10 people could all experience the same thing, and chances are likely you're going to get 10 different responses, like people
Mm,
feel get because every single thing we experience, we give meaning to. And everybody's going to give a different meaning to something. And so you give meaning based on what your life experience is. And there is no right or wrong because your life experience is your life experience. So it wasn't that you weren't supposed to go through that life experience. Well, because how would that solve anything if we took that perspective? So it's
right.
like, it's your experience. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if you don't like how you feel because of that experience, that's just an indicator you need to acknowledge the feeling. And it's so common that we don't acknowledge the feeling because I don't think most of us have ever been taught that acknowledging a feeling actually has any ramifications, any consequences, any positive reasons. But when we feel something and it has a negative charge on it, does that word make sense to you?
Mhm. For sure.
So when something has a negative charge and we don't acknowledge it and we don't talk it through and we just have the feeling and then we move on to something else, without the acknowledgement, the energy that's associated with that gets stored somewhere in our body. And if we do that over and over and over and over and over,
Mhm.
eventually we get this huge backlog of energy that's been stored in our body that needs to be released. And if we don't give it expression, it stays in our body and eventually it becomes um, something on a bigger level. It could create a car wreck that you're in. It could create all of a sudden your air conditioning goes out. It could create your car breaks down. Or the one that kind of happens most often is you get sick, you get a diagnosis of some kind.
Mhm.
And most people think that all of those things are external to them, which they are, but they don't connect it to there was something going on in our life that we didn't address. And I get a lot of clients who, when they come to me and we talk things through, they'll find that there was some external thing that happened to occur at a similar time to this experience that they're talking to me about. And it's like, there is no coincidence. It was absolute serendipity because it was this energy that was inside that needed to be expressed in some way, shape, or form. And so when you start, like before we were on air, I was telling you about how my laptop, I just had my repair guy come and pick up my laptop because it was running real slow. And he had texted me a few minutes before we started telling me what he thought it was going to be. Was he thought it sounded like the hard drive was going bad, and now he confirmed it. And I was excited because he said, once you get a new hard drive, it'll be like your laptop is brand new. And because of things I'm experiencing in my life right now, I kind of feel like that beautifully illustrates and demonstrates that my life is going through an overhaul in a positive way. And it's like me, Wendy, I'm getting a new hard drive and I'll be good as new because of the things that I'm allowing myself to experience. So I never think of it, an experience that you don't like as a bad thing. It's always a good thing. Now, I've spent years practicing having that be my internal response. But I
Yeah.
feel like for you, um, what we talked about in take number one, you are going through some growing pains and they're good.
Hmm.
It's letting you know that you're ready to expand so that you can handle all the things that you do with ease. And this feeling of discomfort or being overwhelmed is something that has to have been addressed for
Mm.
you to expand and move forward. And
I like that.
acknowledge, and you're acknowledging, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I'm like, ooh, yay, that's a good thing. Because you're acknowledging it. Now, if
Hmm.
you were just feeling it and you weren't talking about it, it would get pushed inside. That's what we call repressed emotions.
Right.
And eventually, repressed emotions implode.
Oh,
And
definitely.
huge chaotic event that takes,
Yeah.
you know, occurs, whether in your body or outside, but something will occur. But you're not going through that because you're acknowledging you felt that way. And it's a
I
good thing.
appreciate that. Actually, hearing that, I appreciate it, because there was a time in my life for 25 years where they were repressed emotions, and I did hold all of them in and not talk about them, and you know, then had PTSD and nightmares or all this other stuff. And it, in you're right. It does when that happened. It also made me not the person I was supposed to be. I always say I was just a shell of a person because I I was always afraid to express anything I was feeling.
Mm,
So, when it came to it, that's where I was on the precipice of, you know, ending my life because it was so overwhelming. Um, but
yeah,
I'm glad I'm here now.
yeah, coming to the point of wanting to end your life. I know people who maybe they've never tuned into you before and they hear that, they're like, oh my gosh, this woman almost committed suicide for real. People freak out over that.
Mhm,
And I'm not saying we should clap and go, oh, yay, good for you. But it is a real indicator that
mhm,
you have had not paid attention to the negative feelings that you had been experiencing. And so the universe's way of addressing that and saying, hello, we want you to hear us, is by getting your feelings to such a place that even the thought of committing suicide is really big. It's
yeah.
very extreme and it got your attention.
It did,
And
yes.
that was its purpose, was to get your attention. It wasn't for you to go through with it. It was to get your attention, to make some significant changes.
And I guess that would be a blessing that came from it, obviously, because once I did realize that that's what was happening. It took about 3 days, but it was almost like this light came on
Only 3
and
days?
yeah.
Only 3 days,
Well,
that's pretty
3
cool.
yeah, but it was dark. It was a dark 3 days, but I had a lot of encouragement, a lot of not a lot, I mean, a handful of people, but who were there to encourage me to tell my story for the first time ever, and I think that was a big deal for me, was to get it told, get it off my chest, to say it out loud. And I think that's something that even for our listeners, like, it is important sometimes to say it out loud. Because for me, it becomes reality when I say those words. I feel this way, or I'm sad, or I'm overwhelmed. Like, I talk to myself quite a bit. I used to feel crazy, but now it's just like I know that's who I am as a person. Like, that's why I created the meditation technique that I did because it was saying all of those things that are overwhelming out loud helps me to be like, "You know what? I can get through this." It kind of forces me to sit down, readjust my mindset and, you know, um, find those blessings even in the traumatic or bad times, whatever. Um But
Um,
hearing you saying that, it's amazing going through this podcast how when I talk to different people, um, they kind of reinforce that, "Hey, you're doing things right. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to, you know, have those feelings, but let's work on, you know, not feeling that way." And I think that's what makes you valuable to people is because, you listen and giving people that space and time to just talk, and then you reinforce, "Hey, it's okay that you're feeling this way," and I think that's what
have
a
you
lot of
ever
people
have you ever
need.
heard of a woman named Byron Katie?
No. Mm-mm.
She's in the self-help space, she's been around for a long time, and she teaches that to argue with what is what creates our suffering.
I mean, I can see that. Yeah.
So if you're saying, I feel sad or bad or suicidal, what's wrong with me? Her response would be, it's just data, it's just information. And by trying to invalidate those feelings is what
Mhm.
causes your suffering. But to acknowledge them is actually what helps to release your suffering.
I like that because I think it's important in any relationship that we're in, friendship, marriage, whatever it is, um, that's an important and valuable thing to have is listening to your partner.
Absolutely.
Letting them if they're feeling a certain way, it's not that their feelings aren't valid, so you should listen to how they're feeling and
I
then
mean, the
go from
truth is, everything we feel is valid
Mhm.
because we're feeling it. And to argue with what you're feeling is to cause suffering.
I like that. I like that. I heard the other day that, someone had asked out of the mouth of babes, but, someone had asked a little kid, um, " is the word hate bad?" And the little kid went, "No." And the adult kinda stepped back a little bit, and he's like, "Why?" "Because it's a feeling, and if we're feeling, it's good." And he's like, "Okay, let's talk a little bit about that." So then they went into it, why hate really is bad, but yes, it is a feeling. Um, but I say
I
that to say
so I'm gonna say it's not bad, it's a judgment.
yes, and that's kind of where he was going with it,
Mhm.
was, yes, it is a feeling, and if you're feeling something, that's not a bad thing.
And if you're feeling
Um,
happiness, that too is a judgment.
mhm,
The feeling itself has no intrinsic meaning. The meaning comes from you, the person experiencing it. And
Correct.
you
Yeah.
get to decide if you want to feel that more or feel that less. Oftentimes, we think if we don't want to feel something again, we call it bad.
Right.
And I say, no, it's just a preference. You just prefer not to experience that again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something that I think we can maybe all agree is kind of neutral and outside of the bad or good territory is if somebody is a thrill seeker, that's somebody that I think of like they just love the idea of jumping out of a plane. Now, of course, they do it in a safe way with a parachute and they've got some training,
Mm-hmm.
but they do that and it's such a rush for them. That's good for them. I don't personally have the need or the desire to jump out of an airplane.
Yeah, me
Now,
neither.
does that make me bad or wrong?
No.
No, I just have a different preference.
Right.
But for someone who has the preference to jump out of a plane, I support their desire to have that sense of thrill. It's
Right.
just that's not how I get a thrill. But it
Right.
doesn't make either one of us right or wrong. It's just a preference. And
And
that's how
I,
I
yeah,
think about everything, including the little boy talking about hate.
yeah,
It's not bad. It's just maybe the person who was asking doesn't prefer to feel the emotion of hate.
right. And I'm a person who prefers not to feel, I don't by any sense of the word ever want to feel that way. Um, but it was an interesting conversation that kinda had to step back and try to understand what the little kid meant, and then I was like, "Oh, that is true." We should be blessed that we get to feel things every day,
Well, and let me throw
whether
out another caveat. Everything we experience that we do not prefer is always an emotional launching pad for us to experience
mm,
what we do prefer. So if something comes into your life and your internal response is that you hate this, in that moment, I promise you, on an unseen level, you have just shot something off into the universe that says, I want to experience what hate is not. So the fact that you experience something unpleasant
mhm,
is actually storing up all sorts of energetic things for you that you really do desire. And when you come into alignment with them, they show up. Now, what does that mean? That means if you can let go of your attachment to the judgment that hate is bad and wrong and horrible, and you don't ever want to experience again, when you can say, it's okay, it didn't kill me,
mhm,
I'm moving on, and whatever it came into my life to generate, I'm open to that. And when you're in that space, the law of attraction, the universe picks up on that vibration that you're sending that's saying, I want things to feel good. And I'm open to whatever universe you have to send me. And then it will send you something good. And then you will have experienced um, the essence of what that hate experience was really all about and wanting to generate for you.
I love that because it reminds me of other things that I went through where when you're saying that, it's so I'll back up. I hated, okay, the only time I really use the word, being abused. I hated being in those relationships now. Like, back then, I had acclimated to the abuse, and I've said this on previous podcasts where, I had to come to the accountability of it was on me not to leave because I thought that was just what it was. That's all I was worth, so I just stayed. But when I went through that moment in 2019 where I was on that precipice, I hated those 25 years of going through it, of my kids going through it. Um, but then now, looking back on it, I find that God has brought so many blessings from it. It's not that he wanted me to go through it, obviously. He doesn't want us to go through anything like
But it was
that.
a powerful catalyst
But
to your
yes,
life
it was
journey.
a catalyst to where I am now, and so many good things have come out of it. And I think that's all about perspective as well in some people. Some
Mhm.
people can look at it and be like, "What are you talking about? Like, how do you find good in everything that you've been through?" But that's also about having a different mindset, having a different perspective on what is good and what is true. And so I love that you said that because when I said that, it was a moment where in my mind, I was like, I want something different. I never want to go through that again. This is the worst. This is, I want something so much better. Um, and it, and I know that it will come. I know that it will come. I feel that. I have this energy within me now when I look back that that time in my life, I've forgiven it, which was a very, very hard thing to do, but to forgive it has made me so much stronger. And so to say I hated those years now, I can't say that.
And if one of the biggest takeaways from this podcast, I'm hoping people will really get in the core of their being, is that there is no experience that is intrinsically bad. Every experience has pearls and gems within it for our highest and best good if we look for it or if we're
Mhm.
willing to accept it, because we
Right,
are our own meaning makers. And if we experience something and label it with all sorts of judgment and negativity, we're the one that suffers.
yeah,
But the moment you begin to go, I know there's something in this that is for me, I know there's something of a positive value, you open up the possibilities. And if you stay within those thoughts of like, I can't wait to see what is generated because of this thing,
right,
it will come. It's guaranteed. That is how law of attraction works. When you have feelings within yourself that you feel with intensity, law of attraction will always bring things to you that match it. So if you stay harboring on the negativity and the suffering, law of attraction is going to absolutely bring to you more reasons and more events and
right.
more circumstances that will be of like kind to the misery that you're feeling,
Yeah,
which is why you're the one that suffers, not you specifically, but whoever's listening.
right,
Whoever chooses to give negative meaning to something is the one that suffers. And when they choose to release the negative meaning and say, all right, I'm open to the possibilities of this turning into a catalyst for good, all of a sudden your vibration, your internal emotion has shifted. And now law of attraction has something very different it can bring to you. And the quicker you get to that, the quicker the suffering ends and the quicker the joy ensues.
right. And I will completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. I think the simplest way that I explained it to one of my friends, it was about a month ago. Um, it's like you wake up in the morning, you spill your coffee, then your coat catches on the doorknob, then you trip down the stairs, which I've had these days. And back then, my internal instincts were to get upset, to cry, or be like, I just can't go into work now. My whole day is ruined. It's only 8 o'clock in the morning, you know, and my whole day is shot. But I've had it happen now with a different mindset, looking for blessings, looking for positive in I try to look for it in everything that happens. Um, and now, like the other day I spilled coffee on a brand new white shirt, not this one, thank goodness, but on a brand new white shirt, stained it up, then ripped my dress, going out the door to go to church. And I just I took some deep breaths and I was like, This is just stuff. It just happened. It doesn't mean anything. It's just what is, you know?
Good for
And
you. That
my day was not
that's a big thing to be able to stop the momentum of those negative things from happening and just saying, you know what, I don't have to have more of this to happen.
well, and I feel like like me, like, for example, back then, if you continue to have that negative, everything's going bad, it will go bad.
It's a snowball that goes downhill.
Yeah, because you're always looking for it to go bad. You're always looking for it to be negative when you're in that mindset. And now I try to flip that to a positive, and after those 2 things happened, I had a great day because I didn't let it bother me, and I looked for good things to happen the rest of the day, like,
And
focused
I
on
want to say though, you're the one who changed it.
it.
You
Yeah,
changed the trajectory of your day
mhm,
because you always are in control of that. You're always
yep,
that power is always within you. It's kind of like Dorothy clicking her heels 3 times. It's like the power to go home was always within her. And
right,
I had one of, and this doesn't happen often to me much, but I had one of those days where I was not even out of bed yet. And something popped into my mind that I had this grimacing kind of
mm,
reaction to it. And then something else happened of an equal nature. And then something else happened. And when the third thing happened, I just went, stop. What the heck am I thinking that's
mhm,
keeping this cascading snowball running in this direction? Because I don't want this. And so I went, okay, do over. And how do I want to start my day? And
yeah,
I changed my internal thoughts. But our thoughts, always, 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 without exception, even though people love to throw exceptions at me, but there are no exceptions, that our thoughts always generate what we experience.
yeah,
Always.
and that's one thing that I've said before to people is, like, where your mind is, where your focus is, that's where your life's going.
Absolutely.
So, I absolutely love that we did this because I mean, not a lot of people, I think, realize how much focusing on the negative affects you. And so, as much as I can get that out there, um, and try to be as vulnerable as possible with my own life and my own story, I just want people to know that there's hope to switch that mindset from negative to positive, focus on
Absolutely.
something good.
And I'm
But
going to throw in here that, we started out with the idea of let's do a mock coaching session, which I said wouldn't be really like a fake one, it'll be a real one. There are times that when I'm talking with my clients, they got what they needed in the first 5 minutes, but we're booked for an hour. So just like
yeah,
you and I just kind of went on to some other ideas around the main idea,
right.
it really generated for both of us a lot of good stuff.
Yes, for
And
sure.
so, I tell, it's on my website, you don't have to have a problem to hire a coach. Sometimes just hiring a coach is in this way a catalyst for you to get new ideas, things
Right,
that give you inspiration, things that motivate you to feel good. And I think there is so much value in just having conversations
right.
that cause you to feel good.
And I think that's why, like I said, a little bit ago, that's why I think you add value to, or how you add value, or you do add value to your clients because giving them that space and time to just express how they're feeling, whether it's negative or not, just talking. I have found that to be very therapeutic. Um, I've never seen a therapist. That's just me. I've never seen anyone to really sit down and talk about what I've been through, how I feel. I wish I had years ago. I probably wouldn't have went through those 25 years, but I also look back on it like, you know, I wouldn't be where I am either had none of that happened. So, I just feel very blessed. to be where I'm at now. And I think with all of that and everything that was said today, it really is leaving like a lasting impression, I hope, on our listeners, that you don't have to be on that precipice of ending your life. You don't have to be in a traumatic situation or in anything. If you just want to talk, it's okay to just sit down with someone and talk. And I feel honestly, someone outside of your circle sometimes is best because they can be unbiased in how they express themselves with you. So that's just my opinion. I do think sometimes that is a good thing. They don't have any preconceived notions or anything about who you are as a person. But I this was really a blessing. I really enjoyed this, and I hope that our listeners will take down your information because if you want to, I'll have your website. You do a live also. So if you want to give them that information, and then I will also put that in the bio. I really do encourage you guys to look her up and just sit down and have a conversation. She's more than happy to talk about anything and really has some good guidance. So if you want to give them your information, Miss Wendy.
So my website, it's pretty easy. It's my name, wendydillard.com. If you read through, I have gazillions of pages of information. If you read through, you may get exactly what you're looking for. If you feel like you want a little bit more, on almost every page near the bottom, there's a button that you can click to book a compatibility session with me. And that's 45 minutes to an hour where you can either talk to me about an issue and I'll help coach you through it, or just talk in general. You know, everybody's different as to how they like to talk. But bottom line, it helps us build a rapport with one another. So if you do want a coaching relationship with me going forward, it kind of gives you a sense of, oh, yeah, I could work with her.
Mhm.
No, she's not quite my thing. But I also have every Tuesday night on both Facebook and LinkedIn, I have a live where I talk maybe for the first 15 minutes about some topic or subject that's relevant to the law of attraction. And then I open up the rest of the time to people putting a question in the chat box. And it could be a deep question, it could be a shallow question, you know, and I don't have a judgment out what shallow means. Um, but you can ask me anything. If it doesn't feel like detailed enough for me to answer it, I'll just say, can you give me a little bit more clarity? But I love the platform that this is on because not only does it stream on two, you know, places live, but it allows me to interact with people. And if you can't afford coaching or you don't think coaching is really what you want, this is still a great way to get coaching. And it doesn't cost you anything. That's the big thing. This is a free platform because I'm wanting to get myself known by others. And it's public. And so that means that if you have friends that you think, oh my God, does she need coaching? Pass on my information. Um, how you find me on LinkedIn is just typing in Wendy Dillard and then look at my featured events
Mhm.
and show up at the time we start, which is 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern every Tuesday night. If you want to go to Facebook, if you just type in Wendy Dillard, you're going to find me, even though the actual URL, I believe, is Live Your Destiny with Wendy Dillard. But either way, if you type in Wendy Dillard, you're going to find me. And I would love to have you on that program. Right now, it's still rather new, so I'm not filling up a full hour with people asking questions, but I really look forward to doing that.
I
So
think that's amazing.
even one person, she showed up, and while I was doing my 15-minute intro, she was there. And then when I went to see if she had a question, she was gone. So on my own, after the show was over, I just, you know, sent her a direct message in Facebook and said I was sorry to see her go, but I hope she comes back. And she, you know, said I had to run and pick up my kids, but I'll absolutely be back next Tuesday. You know, and she kind of gave me a preview of her question and I gave her a preview of my answer. But I said, you know, on the show, give me more and we'll go into greater detail. I mean,
Yeah.
this is free one-on-one coaching. Where else can you get that, people?
Right, right. I mean, you can't beat it. I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate what you're doing for people and trying to help people. That's what it's all about. So,
Absolutely.
love your heart, and I hope we'll do this again. We'll just
I
have
hope
to
so.
think. There's so many topics. I think I said that last time. There's
Well,
so
I was
so
gonna
many.
say, because this show was not what we expected, this is take
Right.
2. Um, it's funny because take 1, your question was all about truth. And I felt there was a certain point in this conversation, I went, I think she got the truth she was seeking. Because we always do.
Yeah.
The universe
Yeah.
is always providing us what we need. But if you want to have us do this kind of thing again, where you have a question or a topic, trust me, I can roll with it.
Okay. I know you can. I know
And
you
I think
can.
it's the best way for people to understand what I
Right.
offer, because I think
Right.
coaching can be kind of a mysterious thing, kind of like therapy can be mysterious if you've never done it. You don't know, is
Yeah.
somebody going to be really invasive, and asking questions? Doesn't have
Yeah.
to. And like I said to you before take 1, if I ask you something that feels uncomfortable, just tell me that and I'll back off.
Wonderful. Well,
So
you are amazing, so I'm looking
thank you.
forward to more episodes and just to see where they go. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Soul Hygiene. I hope you'll come back and listen again. And please hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening at on the platform soulhygiene.net. You can subscribe there. We do have a YouTube channel now, Soul Hygiene. And our Soul Hygiene's on 50 different podcast platforms. So please go subscribe. I would love to get us in the at least top 300 for right now, but I really want us to keep moving up to, you know, get up there where everyone else is and get our listeners, my main focus is to get followers and subscribers who really want the help and really want to become victorious. So I appreciate everyone joining, and I hope you tune in for another episode when we have another one, hopefully in the next week or so. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye bye.